to our Tim Anderson and Glynis Frederiksen from the King County Animal Control, who were kind enough to come. And Glynis, thank you for coming. I talked with Glynis yesterday and asked her to come. She was short notice and showed up, and that's great. Thank you.
So I'm Glynis Frederiksen. I'm one of the two operations managers. The name of our agency now is actually Regional Animal Services of King County. So originally it was King County Animal Care and Control. In 2010, we joined basically with 26 cities plus Unincorporated King County to provide animal care and control services. So we're now on the verge of our next contract for 3 years with the city. So we're right in the middle of negotiations for that. But there's been a lot of transition, I think, from our previous model, really looking at our services, trying to streamline, trying to look at best practices. We've gone from an agency that probably about 5 or 6 years ago euthanized probably about 40% of the animals that came in. And now we have a euthanasia rate that's, last year was 14.3%, which was really among the lowest in the country. So we have a lot to be proud of. We have probably about 5,000 animals that come through our shelter every year. Our shelter's located down in Kent. We just went through rebranding, and I brought a bunch of brochures, some of our new brochures, but we're actually calling it the Pet Adoption Center of King County instead of our Kent shelter. We probably have about 500 volunteers. So volunteers do everything from walking the dogs to doing the laundry to working with the public and helping them adopt animals, fostering animals. We have a very, very large foster program where we send anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 animals out into foster care. So it's quite anything from little bitty kittens to older cats that need some help recuperating from illness. So it's been kind of an interesting growth. We also partner with a lot of organizations, nonprofit organizations, who have large adoption programs. So those animals can be moved out to some of those larger areas that are looking for highly adoptable pets to place for adoption. We do pet licensing, so that's through our pet licensing office downtown. And we also have a new program, new within the last year. We call it our Mission Reunite, which is basically a volunteer-run program. When people lose animals, our volunteers can help them connect through various means to try to locate those lost pets. And it's a great program. It prevents some of the animals from actually coming into our shelter, as well as making sure that lost animals that have been brought in are reunited with families. And again, it's volunteer-driven, so it's if you ever see cars going by with large neon lettering that says "Lost Dog," I mean, they're out there in the community. That's our program that we're working on. So Tim's going to talk a little bit about the animal control aspect of it, the public safety side.
Well, thanks for having us here tonight. I really appreciate that. So it's a great turnout. I'm surprised it's a lot more than I thought. So I enjoy doing these. I'm pretty new to King County. Just to give you an idea, I've only been here about a little more than 6 months. So I've had a chance to be out in the community, and so I enjoy doing these. So anytime you have questions or you'd like, feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to do it. So I'll just give you kind of a quick, brief overview of what we do for field services for animal control. And then if you have some questions for either Glynis or at the end, we'll be happy to field those for you. So we do about 12,000 calls each year, approximately. So like Glynis said, we contract with 26 cities in unincorporated King County. We have 7.25 ACOs to cover this huge county here. So to give you some comparison, I came from Pierce County. Pierce County, we have 6 full-time animal control officers and a full-time support person that would go do a lot of stray pickups and that type of thing. And they do, obviously, a much smaller county, and they do about 5,000 calls a year. So give you a pretty good comparison. And Snohomish County is pretty similar to what Pierce County numbers look like as well. So another pretty good little measure there is, so for March, the miles that the animal control officers drove throughout King County in the month of March was 12,329 miles. So we put on a lot of miles each day on those trucks. This area here, we have districts defined, and it's going to change a little bit. But we identified this district here as 240, and that consists of Skyway, White Center, Vashon Island as well, the city of Kent and the cities of SeaTac and Tuckwell. So in 2011, we responded to just over 1,000 calls. It was actually 1,267 calls within this district here. More specifically, in the unincorporated areas, so Skyway, White Center, Vashon, we responded to 315 calls in those areas. So we have some priority levels that we can certainly discuss a little bit about how calls come in, and I'll tell you how you can make calls and how you can report animal violations, crimes, whatever it might be a little bit later. But so what do we do? Call types. So everything from animal cruelty, which could be intentional animal cruelty, somebody shoots or harms an animal, to neglect. We run the whole spectrum of those type of calls. Aggressive dogs, aggressive animals, animal bites, strays, exotic animals, occasional alligator. Recently, an anteater recently in SeaTac, they actually called us to the airport for some loose anteaters that got loose on a plane. So that's always fun. And those tend to come at, at like 4:30 when I'm just about the end of my shift on a Friday. And they say, hey, dispatch says we got anteaters at SeaTac. And I'm really seriously, but okay. So snakes. So really the whole spectrum. If it's not wildlife, we'll pretty much handle it. So fish and wildlife response to those that are cougars and bears and that type of thing. But everything else, they kind of leave up to us. But fortunately enough, we primarily do dogs and cats. So then we also do barking, dead animals on the roadways, just about anything you can think of animal related, we respond to and handle. So we have, I think I said we had 7 1/4 animal control officers. Does that include Dave's position in that?
No.
So, and in addition, so we have a cruelty investigator. So his job is primarily to do follow-up on animal cruelty cases, those that are felonies. They work really close with the major crimes unit of the Sheriff's Department to investigate those and make sure those are prosecuted. And a cruelty investigator also does a good job of helping write some search warrants for other things and some other cases on follow-ups. How to contact us. Oh, so just to give you kind of an idea of some of the cruelty cases, so we have currently over 30 cows that we've seized from a cruelty situation in the county, several horses, and I'm not sure how many horse cases we have now, some fighting dogs that we seized a while back that are still in the shelters. So again, just a little bit of everything. How you can contact us. So there's a couple of ways to contact us. Our main line, in the brochures, I believe all the brochures have our contact information here. I'll also leave business cards. My business card, you can feel free to call me. But our main line is 206-296-PETS, so 7387. And that, we have 2 people that answer that phone, so Monday through Friday between the hours 8:30 and 4:30, you can call. That's the best way to make a complaint if it's not something that's endangering your life. So you can also make those calls, so if you have a dog that's acting aggressively towards you and threatening yourself or an animal possibly in traffic that's causing a danger to public safety, or an animal where someone is currently abusing that animal, you can call 911 and we can be dispatched that way as well for those. So we have, currently we do 6 days a week where we have officers in the field. The 7th day, which is Sunday, we have officers available from Kent to respond for emergencies. And then each night we have at least 2 officers that are on call. So these are officers that work throughout the day, and then they're on call at night. We typically split it north and south, one north, one south, that will respond to emergency calls. Injured animals, aggressive animals that are out loose. You can also contact us at the website. It's kind of long, but it's on there. You can go to our website. You can make a complaint there. You can fill out an online complaint form and submit it that way. It's another way we take complaints. So those are the 3 primary ways to contact us and make complaints. So with that, again, I really appreciate you having us here. If you have any questions, we can field those. Yes.
Do you have any program for feral cats?
We do. We actually have a barn cat program. We don't see a ton of feral cats being released to the shelter, but we do have a group of volunteers that will spay and neuter. We test them for feline leukemia and feline AIDS, and then they go out into barn homes, placed in groups of 4. So we've been pretty successful. We don't euthanize healthy ferals.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to comment, I have adopted 2 pit bulls from the King, and I want to tell you that you did a wonderful job, and they are the absolute best dogs I have ever.
Thank you for adopting us. That's right. Pit bulls they're a challenging breed because they have a lot of stigma attached, you know, so it's hard for us to get them adopted, but they're some of the nicest.
Yeah, I have two.
When they're-
I've had two.
So I have a family member who lives in the area, just by Lake Hicks here, and they've said that they've called over the last year a couple of different times on pit bulls, probably not yours, but who have been out and showing kind of vicious. She said not real, you know, but threatening for her because she has a small dog that she likes to walk in the neighborhood. She says she's called several times, never had a response. She said the last time she called there was an answer machine, so she was concerned that animal control didn't, or regional animal services didn't even bother to pick up the phone, and then she never got a call back. So I did tell her that perhaps someone did go out, and there might have not been the follow-up to see what had occurred.
Sure.
But I was wondering if there is any changes with their field services, with only 6 or 7 officers in such a large territory. Does this area in particular have an officer assigned to it? Or?
Yeah, I mean, even though we have such a small staff, we're very responsive, and we actually respond to those calls pretty quickly. So each of these areas that we define will have at least one officer in there, and then we'll typically on the heavy days have someone that roams in that area as well. So, obviously a dog, if it's out and it's acting aggressive, that's a higher priority call for us, so it should get a response. Some things that kind of play into that, so if you called and said, hey, I saw one running down International Boulevard and it was acting aggressive, but we didn't know where it came from, an officer's going to respond and drive through there, but if there's nobody contacting them, it always works that way. We're never right where the dog's at that time,
right.
But we're going to respond to that. But if they have questions or concerns that maybe there wasn't some follow-up afterwards,
yes.
That's why I'm here today. Just feel free to give me a call, and I'd be happy to look into those.
Okay. Well, I definitely told her to call you and let you know the days and have somebody come out, because she has this feeling now that no one's going to respond to her.
Yeah, and so Monday through Friday during the 8:30 to 4:30 hours, we have 2 people that answer that phone line. So after hours, if it's emergency, they can leave messages, and those are retrieved. Even on weekends, they are retrieved and calls are entered. So we have a database where we collect and enter that information and track it.
Well, let her know. Thank you.
I've got my phone number. So
That's right. Okay, thank you. I will.
What is the law for, and particularly usually dogs, but a dog attacking either other dogs and hurting or maiming them, or attacking a human? There have been questions about it. I think I know the answer, but I'm not sure. And I always like, when I see a dog out, they've attacked me a couple times. I'm saying, this is what the law is. So can you maybe clarify that for me?
Obviously, first violation, dogs can't be out just running loose. That's a violation.
No, I
They can't
understand
just be
that.
running loose. But so if it's acting aggressive and attacks you or another animal, there's state laws, and then we have local code, and then we have 26 cities. So some of those cities are slightly different. But just as a general rule, we can do everything from issue from a verbal warning at the lowest, a written warning, to give what's called a notice of violation. It's essentially like a ticket. And those range from anywhere from as low as $25. Most of the $25 is typically the off leash. So if it's running loose, threatening a person, it starts at $50 and then it doubles on the way up there. And animals that are acting vicious or aggressive, it starts at $500 and then it goes up to $1,000 from there for a second violation. You can also put like a confinement order on the animals. So if the dog that's out acting aggressive or attacked your dog or acted aggressive towards you, we could put restrictions to say that dog has to be on your property, it has to be in a kennel, it has to be locked up in your house, that type of thing. And then if they violate that, we can move forward with what's called like a removal order, where we can say it's got to be out of King County within 48 hours. And if they violate some of those things, so everything from the ticket to all the way up to some of the things are crimes. So if you violate that, it's a misdemeanor in the county code. There's also if it's a dangerous dog under the state definition, it could be a gross misdemeanor as well. So the average that I see, Glynis could tell you a little different. So most calls where it's an aggressive animal we've dealt with and we wrote them, most of them aren't licensed as well. So it's usually $650. I mean, it's pretty steep. It's several $100s, and they can appeal that, of course, but it's a pretty high ticket.
So is it best to call, like if you do have an emergency, is it best to just call 911 initially, or?
So yeah, certainly. So if it's an emergency where the dog's actively, acting aggressive towards you or biting you, call 911 for that, and then they'll dispatch that. We're on the same 3 frequencies as the sheriff's department, so you might get a patrol deputy that gets there first, or one of us. But then it's always good to call back to our pets line and do a little bit of follow-up too, to make sure that we get all the information that we need in there from you, and that it's in our database, and that we can do the follow-up that we need to do.
I think what happens sometimes is 911 may respond, the sheriff's officer may respond, and they'll clear it on their end with a recommendation that the person then calls us for follow-up, and that doesn't always happen, so.
So you don't get it on your record?
We don't always have record of
Yeah,
it.
no, just go through that. And the deputies do an awesome job of responding to these calls. So often they're going to get there quicker and before us, and we do a really good job of communicating with one another. But it's always best, do that follow-up call to our non-emergency line just to make sure it's documented.
You guys had a question?
Yeah, you know where Lakewood Park is?
So I'm pretty new to King County at first,
That's what I
but I don't know exactly where it's
The
at.
dogs run loose down there all the time.
Okay.
The site belongs to the county, and they're supposed to be on leash, but they all run loose. What do you call? I mean, by the time you guys got there, they'd be gone by that time.
Yeah, and that's the challenge is if it's, it's always.
Well, how about a stop by through there once in a while?
Yeah,
Can
and
you do that?
we do, and so we encourage, officers when they're doing reports or taking lunch and, to spend some time in the parks and drive through there. So they do spend, a great deal of time in parks, but I would encourage you, so if you're noticing that continues to be like a consistent problem, to call and let us know. If it's somebody that you always see, hey, I see this person all the time, and you get a description, you know where they live, or a vehicle license plate or something like that, we can do some follow-up with that person. But yeah, I see Glynis is writing Lakewood Park right now, so we'll...
If you need a map of it, we can show you where it is.
I promise, I'll have King County down in like 6 more months, maybe.
Yeah, especially if there's a specific time of day.
That's right.
If it's, if it's one particular person and they're always at a particular time of day, or everyone has their dogs loose after work, or,
No, they got a disc golf course down there. And the disc golfers come from all over the country, and they bring their dogs and feel they can run loose down there.
Okay, sure. Is there a certain time of day you're seeing that more, mornings, afternoons, evenings, or just any
On
time?
the weekend, more probably any time, but talk to these guys and they say ignore you anyhow.
Yeah.
Well, and our field services has just recently moved. We were just Monday through Friday since the regional model, and we're now going to 7 days a week, so we will have much better coverage on the weekends.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Yes, sir.
We do have a pit bull next door that has jumped the fence and attacked a neighbor's dog. Is there a way to find out if there was any follow-up on that, if he's supposed to be confined or not?
Sure.
So I'm curious, I'm concerned because he jumped a 4-foot fence, which is what
Right.
is into my yard, and I have 3
Right.
small grandchildren that
Yeah.
don't want
So,
to be attacked.
so we kind of had that discussion yesterday, and I talked to the person that was involved in there as well. So, yeah, there was a follow-up that was issued. I can't remember how large of the ticket he was issued as well, and there's a confinement order on the dog, so the dog actually has to stay either within a kennel or within the house, and if it's out, it's got to be on a leash. And it's pretty specific, so what it says as far as being out on a leash, the leash can't be longer than 8 feet, and it has to be walked by someone at least 15 years of age or older, competent person. So if you see that he's not complying with that, certainly call us. And again, call our non-emergency line for something like that, so they can document and get it in. Okay.
And if the dog is in violation of the confinement order, that can lead to an automatic removal order. So if there's whether it's photo documentation that the dog was loose, so it's clear that it was indeed that particular dog that was outside of the fenced area, that provides a lot more support for us. Because these are appealable, so if somebody is issued either a confinement order or a removal, they can go to the King County Board of Appeals to plead their case. So it's nice to have that documentation for us.
The same dog did attack a neighbor behind me last summer twice. They had a small dog that they walked. And once went through an open gate and once over the fence. Now when they heard about this other neighbor having a problem there, we had a name of the patrol officer. We gave them that name, and he was never able to get a call back from that individual.
Okay.
And
So
he didn't have another this other number at that time.
Sure, okay. So yeah, and I'm happy to talk to you a little more about it later too as well. But yeah, I would encourage, all those calls, even if you have the direct number to an animal control officer, they work a varying shift. They work 4/10s, and so, it changes, and they obviously have leave and sick time that they take as well. So it's always best. It's nice to kind of have that neighborhood animal control officer. You get that cell number, like a lot of the neighborhood deputies, but always make those calls to either the 911 center or our non-emergency number first, so it can be documented, and then they'll get the call and they'll get it out to the officer that needs to handle that. Okay.
And it's challenging for us too, because we hear sometimes after the fact, oh, this dog did this and this and this, but if it's not reported to us,
Right.
it's very difficult for us to follow up with that.
Could they report this time that this happened last year, so you would have
We could certainly get a statement on file from
just a statement on that? And another question, one individual had a dog, his dog that was attacked was in his front yard, not on a leash. He got a ticket for not having his dog on a leash.
Yeah, so I've resolved that with them. So there was some question of where the dog actually was at the time, but it's resolved, and that's been.
So if I have a dog in my yard, I do not have to have him on a leash?
No, not on your property, correct, you do not. Yes, sir.
Just, I know the dog they're talking about a little bit, what about a dog that is aggressive towards you, like runs through a gate? This is what happened to me and my partner. We're out walking that particular street. The dog came and got almost to us, but the owner was able to retrieve the dog before it actually attacked us. But it was certainly very aggressive. Should that be reported?
Oh, sure, yeah. So what often happens, and I've found in the 10.5 years of doing this, is that people, you want to kind of be neighborly, and you don't necessarily want to report, but usually there becomes that critical period where people are like, I'm fed up and I'm frustrated, and this is like the third or fourth time it's happened, and it's the first time we're hearing about it getting involved. So if we can be kind of proactive, and you can work with us and let us know that this is happening, because the next time we don't want it to be where it's actually bit you. So if we can head it off, whether that's education or some kind of enforcement to stop it, that's the goal. So I would encourage you, call and let us know that.
Thank you.
And if you're saying if it was behind a gate, a dog can bark at you and act scary on the other side of the fence, but if it is off their property, or certainly not controlled by the person, then that's...
I believe you said it went through the gate.
Yeah.
So,
No, if the dog's aggressive behind his fence, even if the gate's open, a lot of them will stay right in their yard.
Sure.
That's their property. I'm not
Right, and no violation there, but when it leaves its property, that is a violation. Yes, sir.
How does the city contract with the King County Animal Control?
So this is, there's an interlocal agreement that is set up. Basically, we have a group of people that are working with representatives from the different cities about the terms of the interlocal agreement. I know that my understanding is that virtually every city in the county has been contacted initially to find out if they're interested in participating in this regional.
Because I live in Burien right now, and we do not contract with King County.
Right.
They try and run it on their own, and frankly, in our opinion of myself and many people is that we would prefer that King County do it.
Right, so, they made that decision, I think it was mid-2010, where they decided that they were going to, create their own animal control service. So, that would be something I would, bring up with your city council.
So, as far as you contact them, they refuse it, or do they contact you and ask you?
I think somebody from King County actually approached the various cities to find out if they were interested, to find out so that we could provide more information about what our services offer, what our possible costs would be. The costs really, it's kind of complex because it all is variable depending on who's involved in the model. So we can't say this is what this is what the package is. And I think that at that time, based on what the city's priorities were and what they were looking towards, that was the decision that they made.
Because there's an annex, White Center and North Island will probably become part of Burien. You're currently providing services for the unincorporated area, which are vastly superior to the ones that are occurring in Burien. One of the rules of the annexation is that they cannot provide less service. So I'm assuming that something is going to be happening from King County to say, or from the White Center community, I guess, to say that we need to have the services, the animal control service in Burien equal to King County, or else they need to hire King County.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that process works. To that question, I can't. Any other questions?
Any more questions? Anyone?
I think the only comment I would have is I suggest from talking to people that field services do a better job of calling people back. Because sometimes they go out and do a great job, but then they don't do a follow-up call, it seems. And you see some examples where they don't. And if they just call back and let them know that they went out, they talked to the person, they agreed, it would do a lot of good for the community to know that they're being valued and the services are being provided. But not only that, but just to show that the animal control officers are doing a great job out there.
That's good.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any more questions?